I'm going to cover this article here about the Finchley Rd fraud story, and I'm going to read it out, and I want people to listen. I want people to take note of this link which I'll share under this video. I hope that people will understand, please understand once and for all, whether you voted Brexit or whether you voted to stay with the EU. Please understand that this Brexit that Boris Johnson and co are promising is not for the British people. Okay, it is not for the UK populace. It is purely for the banking and financial interests of London City, which is an independent state within Britain. Understand this, please, people. Sovereignty only for London City, and they have enjoyed sovereignty as a secret nation within Britain, a secret state within Britain for a very long time. And the EU tax and finance regulations that come into force on January 1st, 2020 are exactly what they hope to avoid by Brexit. That's why we have this hard push on the ground for Brexit. Believe you me, it is being instigated and funded and organised from the highest echelons of Britain's 1% that sit as an elite over us all. And basically to protect their financial interests, to protect their tax breaks and their tax havens, and also to continue to conceal and get away with all the financial crimes that they have been committing. They are prepared to throw Britain as a united nation and the people of Britain to the wolves of Wall Street. Literally, that is what they are prepared to do. For the sake of protecting criminal bankers and their financial interests, austerity to pay for bailouts, basically rewarding criminals for their crimes. 130,000 people in Britain are already dead. I still cannot fathom a people that aren't outraged by that. I just can't. Because I know British people are capable of outrage. I have witnessed outrage over Brexit. I've witnessed people getting outraged because of the kerfuffle in traffic. Okay? I've witnessed people get outraged at their children. But for a whole nation to remain so silent that 130,000 officially are recorded dead exactly through an economic policy, and you're prepared to accept more of that, and we even have it on the government's own admission that British people, British lives will be lost as a direct result of Brexit. So we've already had British lives lost as a direct result of austerity and the banking bailing that austerities are apparently paying for. And now they're threatening more loss of British lives. And the whole country divided, and actually even possible breakup of our, not just the EU, no, but actually the breakup of our United Kingdom. And, you know, again, I'm sorry, that's high treason. Okay, that level of attack is high treason. Now, I'm going to read the Finchley Rd fraud story and understand this is why the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg and co are terrified. They're the ones that are terrified of the EU because they're going to have to disclose all their financial practices. Okay, and I have got a link up here that just shares, you know, what it's all about. Controlled Foreign Companies and EU Anti-Tax Avoidance Directive coming into force very, very soon. And if Britain is not out of the EU this year, then this is all going to come into force. Okay, and the people who delivered the banking collapse to us and the bail-ins and austerity are going to need to start showing their books And that is what they are terrified of. They are terrified. They do not want the EU going through all their financial details, their shenanigans, their businesses. They don't want it. You know what we, the British people, have to do every year? Like, show everything to the taxman, what we've earned, what we've spent. Oh no, they don't want that happening to them, okay? They don't want that happening to them. Because we, the people, can't go and inspect government ministers' tax details, can we? They can inspect ours. Their England revenue can come knocking on our door at any day, okay? But now the EU is, well, basically legislated to do the same to them. Not threatening, as legislated to do the same to them. And why? To prevent Greece from happening in the EU. Now, a lot of Brexiteers were saying, you know, if we stay in the EU, we're going to end up like Greece. Well, no, that's why the EU's brought in these tax regulations, okay, and banking, business, finances. All needs to be disclosed, transparent, out in the open. Because they don't want the whole of Europe to become Greece. But you see, these criminals of power in Britain, they really couldn't give a toss. And that is why I am with the British people, regardless of who they voted for, whether they voted for Brexit, whether they voted to stay. I am with the British people. I know that a lot of people, the vast majority, are actually righteous people who genuinely believed the propaganda that they were fed. And we are talking about an information, a propaganda machine that was headed by the likes of Cambridge Analytica. We know that now. We know it. We know that they invaded British people's privacy. Why? And who funded them to the tune of millions? Yes, the same financiers of Britain who are the only ones who are going to profit through Brexit. They're even betting on it now. They're even betting against the pound. How treasonous can you get to destroy a country's economy? It is outrageous. It's outrageous. And yes, I've had a few battles online now, especially on YouTube comments of Brexiteers attacking me and coming out with all their rubbish. And yes, I am getting angry because I will express anger against people that want to take away our human rights, that want to deny all the rights that we fought for, that want to deny our children a future, that want to see that even the breakup of our United Kingdom. Yes, if push comes to shove, they're threatening civil war if they don't get their Brexit. Well, I've explained to them, well, expect to fight then, because a war is a war. Expect an opposition. Expect us to stand up in defence of our rights and the unity of our kingdom and our children's future. What I am calling for is protests, mass protests on the scale of Iceland, and for lawful action to arrest the criminals. So here we are, the Finchley Rd fraud story. This is Gordon Bowen at 788 to 790 Finchley Road, London. You would not believe how many companies are registered there. I first met Gordon Bowen in 2016 after I came upon his investigations online, which intrigued me and I wanted to find out more about it. I was also interested to find that he would leave his full address and telephone number on social media, which intrigued me even more. Only someone who would have nothing to hide would tell everyone where he lived, I thought, because nobody I knew would do that. I'd also written a book earlier in the year and was looking to write about something new, so I felt inspired enough to give him a call to find out more about the man who had raised my intrigue in a fascinating topic of theft, fraud, money laundering and corruption. Gordon is a short, stocky man in his late 60s with a twinkle in his eye as he greets you and a firm, strong handshake. I arrived early to meet him where he lives, an unassuming two-bed, semi-detached property in Derby. I'd been looking into his investigations into money laundering for a while, and was looking forward to meeting the man that I had lengthy conversations with over the phone before arranging to meet up in person. I knew that I was onto something when I first spoke to him, because the wealth of information that he holds about who's involved in what can only be described as probably the biggest political cover-up scandal Britain has ever seen, is immense, and I really mean that. He can talk for hours on this subject, but it is never boring because you always learn something new every day about how corrupt the people involved in the money laundering networks are from him. The story in a nutshell. What we're talking about here is a global asset stripping multi-billion money laundering operation on an industrial scale being carried out by MPs, lords, knights, dames, celebrities and sportsmen alike, and Gordon Bowen can prove it. He's got files and documentation to back this claim up, information that could potentially bring the whole house of cards and the establishment down with it, and put a lot of well-known people behind bars for years for their involvement in what is, essentially, theft and money laundering on a grand scale. Gordon is not shy in letting people know that he is a retired ex-RAF General Technical Engineer, and that he served for 12 years with distinction before becoming a mining engineer in South Africa. He met his current partner, Valerie Simmons, in South Africa after he had a divorce. Val had just become a widow after her late husband died of cancer and wanted to invest some of the money that was given to her in the will. An independent financial advisor friend suggested that she put the money into a capital venture scheme that would give her a return on her investment within a few months. So she invested £50,000 into the scheme. It says $50,000 here, into the scheme, and waited to see what happened. After a few months of not seeing any money coming in, she showed Gordon the forms that she filled in, and within a few minutes of checking these through, Gordon became suspicious and went back to the financial advisor. It transpired that Val, along with 800 other people, had been caught in a £13.8 million scam operation that even the financial advisor wasn't aware of. Val had lost all of her $50,000, but Gordon wasn't going to let this go without a fight. Being an engineer, he wants to know how things work, and is very proud of the fact that he's able to dismantle an engine or a component, find out about all the intricacies of the machine to see where the problem is, and then put it back together again. So, with that philosophy in mind, he went to work to find out more about who was behind this scam, to see if he could get justice for Val and everyone else that had lost money in it. And, like the motto of the 16th Squadron that he worked for at RAF Larbrook, was Operata Aperta, Latin for hidden things will be revealed. What was revealed to Gordon was astounding and made him physically sick because, you see, he felt betrayed by his own country, the one that had put all his trust in for. He traced back the route of the crime to an address in Britain, 788 to 790 Finchley Road, London, NW11 7TJ. This address is an unassuming office with dirty net blinds on a busy high street in a predominantly Jewish part of North London. It doesn't look much from the outside. In fact, the office is currently up for rent by the Martin Gerard Estate Agent group of companies. What's more important, however, is that 788 to 790 Finchley Road has over 209,000 fake oil, gas and mining companies registered at the address, including 25,000 owned by one octogenarian called Barbara Kehan alone. How can a frail old lady have so many companies registered in her name, I ask you? Barbara Kehan even had the Martin Gerard group of companies registered at the address. You couldn't make this up. Here it is, Finchley. Just down the road is this address, 1033 Finchley Road, also empty. This is another den of iniquity, 923 Finchley Road. NB, for the record, neither Gordon Bowen or any other member of the Pandora's Box Investigations Limited team are anti-Semitic. It just so happens that a considerable amount of companies involved in the money laundering trail that has been uncovered here happen to be in or around the Finchley area of North London. Pandora's box investigations are against any form of corruption or theft. Back to the story. Not only are there over 209,000 fake companies registered at 788 to 790 Finchley Road, but there are also in the region of about 50 other known addresses in London and the rest of Britain doing the same thing in and around Manchester, Bristol, Leeds and Edinburgh combined. And these are only the ones that we know of, including 50 Broadway, London, where Tony Blair moved his company Windrush Ventures out of, as well as set up Fire Rush Ventures in. Here's another company that comes out of 50 Broadway, London. The Halo Trust, the company that Princess Diana was supporting for their work against landmines, which her son Prince Harry is now associated with. And, you know, that's not to say Prince Harry and Princess Diana themselves were part of this scam, but, you know, people do support these charities. They trust. That's the whole thing of it. People trust these financiers. But there's a catch. There always is. The Halo Trust is linked to the infamous Rothschilds family, the ones who have been behind every conflict since the French Revolution. Isn't it ironic that Princess Diana was supporting the work against landmines, but it was linked to a family that were behind them in the first place through this guy, Anthony William Bird? As Gordon says, "Here, let me help those looking for where to open up the NHS Pandora's box, 50 Broadway, London. Investigate the operations of the NHS Confederation Group Company Limited, the NHS Confederation, NHS Confederation Services Limited, previously NHS Confederation Employers Company Limited, previously NHS Employers Limited." What's going on? Does anybody know? Do you know what's going on? I mean, you know, everybody's distracted by Brexit. Brexit is to protect the people that are behind what is being exposed here. Remember this, people. Remember, you Brexiteers, you've been duped. You want to leave the EU? Get this nation in a fit state to stand on its own 2 feet and make sure you've got your World Trade Agreements already set up before you give people the referendum. You don't put people's lives at risk, leaving them with no food, medicines or healthcare. So, it's not rocket science. You don't have to be an NHS brain surgeon to understand how to follow the money. 788 to 790 Finchley Road, London is the very same money laundering address used by ex-Home Secretary Amber Augusta Rudd, Lords, MPs, Sirs, corporate VIPs, David Mackenzie, Donald Mills, the convicted fraudster, ex-Italian PM Silvio Berlusconi, and the Mafia. The same address named in Italian mafia money laundering in Battersea. 2 companies that defrauded the USA defence budget out of 1.5 billion fraud in Prague. The same address that ex-PM Tony Blair with his 11 smoke and mirrors companies, Fire Rush Ventures and their parent Windrush Ventures Limited, and the 209,000 Russian doll Chinese boxes money laundering companies that launched out of the now abandoned 788 to 790 Finchley Road, London. Meanwhile, the 788-790 Finchley Road office has been moved to Woodbury Grove, Finchley, London, where Rick Gates, the former business partner of Paul Manafort, President Donald J. Trump's former campaign manager, used as an address to move money under the radar. You know, you're talking money laundering here. And it's, you know, check the links. And this is it. 85-year-old woman behind the fake London binary options firm addresses exposed. The most worrying thing about all of this, however, is that eminent high-ranking civil servants such as MPs and lords are actively involved in pilfering public and private sector pension pots. linked to these addresses in order to launder money to tax havens like Panama, the British Virgin Islands and Cyprus, to name but a few, in what is the biggest money laundering scam Britain has ever seen. And this is why Gordon has been investigating this for 17 years now. This has become more than just getting justice for Val and all the others that were caught up in the scam that she lost money on. It's more than that, because it involves every citizen in the UK and beyond. The scale of what we're talking about here is beyond comprehension. This is a multi-billion worldwide Ponzi scam operation, as it's called, yet most people are unaware of it, because they would rather be watching their favourite programme than finding out about why their library is closing, or why there are queues of stretchers in A&E departments, why the NHS is being deliberately torn apart so that it can be sold off to private healthcare providers and wealthy shareholders, or why police and fire department crews are feeling the pinch in their budget cuts, all because of a lie that is being perpetuated as austerity measures, which are nothing but a distraction from what is really going on. Theft and money laundering by wealthy millionaires right from underneath our very noses. The very fact that this has been going on since Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister 40 years ago, and that her constituency was Finchley, must not be underestimated here either. This was a deliberate ploy to dismantle the public sector and transform the ownership of public assets into private ownership. And please remember, public assets do include independently owned British businesses. Understand this, they've been asset stripped. Since there was no money in manufacturing, it would seem, and that the state had to supplement manufacturing firms, Margaret Thatcher, under advice of her husband Dennis, engineered a plan to make wealthy hedge fund and stock market investors even wealthier by moving money around in such a way that the Inland Revenue wouldn't bat an eyelid about, and if they did, wouldn't investigate into, because the money involved would appear to be negligible. But of course that was exactly part of the plan. The idea was to disperse the money around via so many different avenues that it would be nigh on impossible to either keep up with or trace it back to its origin. Even Tony Blair thought that he would get in on the action and have his company Windrush Ventures operating in Maggie Thatcher's Finchley constituency. That is, until Gordon Brown came along. By investigating into the fraud that his partner Val had been caught up in, Gordon Brown found that it is possible to follow the money and trace it back to its origin and owner, and to an address via Companies House records. This is where the fraudsters have messed up, because there's no getting away with Companies House registers. This is factual information and is easily accessible by logging into either any of these links and search for the names of individuals or companies concerned. Everyone that has set up a company or a directorship has to keep a record of their business activities for audit purposes at Companies House in Cardiff. Each director has to show exactly how many individuals or organisations he or she is linked to by a Companies House. However, when there are so many directors with numerous offshoot companies all linked to a common origin address like 788 to 790 Finchley Rd, for example, so many in fact that it gets beyond a mere coincidence. You can see a pattern emerging. It's like putting a jigsaw together. Once you know how everything fits, you can start to see the bigger picture, and how the money laundering is the cause of all the wars and conflicts around the world today. It all emanates from St James Square, all properties that are owned by the Rothschilds family, where Chatham House is located. I think that is meant to be Chatham House, not Chatsworth House, but I could be wrong, because you know it's Chatham House that is later shown, which it shows there, Chatham House. So 10 St James Square, St James London, and there's another link. This is another address to be aware of, 6 St James Square. Notice the name Rio Tinto by the door, the company that is currently being investigated for fraud. So, and there's another couple of links. Okay, notice the monkey and the organ grinder at number 4. That's them laughing at the working class. Seriously, they are having a laugh. They are having a laugh all the way to the bank. David Cameron's secret nuclear weapons deal raised 17.8 million. The Conservative Party funds. Imagine selling secret nuclear weapons to raise money for the Conservative Party. What? Seriously, people, who has he sold nuclear weapons to? Just for the sole interest of the Tory party. I tell you, this Tory party, they are a set of treasonists. They really are. They are a set of treasonists. I wonder if David Cameron is starting to worry because of new damning evidence that suggests that Dr. David Kelly's death may not have been suicide after all, and whether he'll do a runner just like he did after Brexit. This is where it all began for Gordon. He very quickly realised there was a correlation to the fraudsters that defrauded his partner Val of $50,000 and an organised crime syndicate operating out of London linked to the corridors of power in Westminster. This can be proven via Companies House records of current and past directorships, addresses, etc. that can be used as evidence in law courts. So, with this information to hand, Gordon began to dismantle these companies just like they were an engine or an aircraft and find out exactly when and where a company had been registered and to whom. And lo and behold, a pattern started to emerge, which was that thousands of fake companies, predominantly fake oil, gas and mining companies, were being registered to 788 to 790 Finchley Road. From there, other addresses on were also being used in a similar operation, e.g. 108 to 11 to 110, 420 to 665, 923 and 1033A, as well as over 30 other addresses on Finchley Road alone. These then feed into over 50 other addresses across the country, including Manchester, Bristol, Leeds and Edinburgh, each one with thousands of fake companies registered there. Starting to get the picture? So, you see, this isn't just about 788, 790 Finchley Road. This is about a network of conduit addresses for Shell or Russian doll companies to be registered at for a cabal of criminals in suits, many of which are in esteemed positions of power in politics, e.g. Amber Rudd, the Home Secretary, who has over 41 dissolved companies registered in her name, all linked directly with a trail to Finchley Road. The list of so-called right honourable MPs and ex-Prime Ministers includes Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, David Cameron and Sir John Major. Each one has made thousands, if not millions of pounds from this money laundering scam operation, and they know that Gordon knows about it because they move their registered address each time that they feel the heat from Gordon's investigations, in the vain hope that no one will find out. But they can't escape. The trail is there and Gordon knows that, and they know that he does too, which is why they do whatever they can to try and cover their tracks. But Gordon knows how the system works and is already one step ahead of them. It's only a matter of time now before some very prominent and powerful people in power will find themselves behind bars for crimes against humanity, theft, tax evasion and money laundering. And hey presto, we've got Brexit. They all hope to avoid facing the music, okay, from their organ grinder. They all hope to avoid facing that through getting Britain out of the EU and getting pally-pally with Trump America, basically. David Cameron tried to hush up the press about his family's involvement in the Panama Papers scandal. But Gordon knew about this years before the International Consortium of Independent Journalists exposed the Panama Papers scandal just over a year or so ago, or the Paradise Papers most recently. And, you know, Richard D. Hall has done some investigations into the death of Joe Cox MP, who were commonly told was murdered by a Brexiteer. But from the evidence that Richard D. Hall has exposed, it does look very much like Joe Cox was murdered to be silenced for what she knew about the Panama Papers and the Paradise Papers. So, you know, I'd advise you to go and check out Richard D. Hall as well. Like I say, Gordon is one step ahead of the game and has a full list of all the people involved in money laundering activities via Panama that links directly back to Finchley Rd. His study is full of files to back this up, details of which can all be verified in a court of law if required. Believe me, Gordon has had to do this on many occasions in exposing this, and this is why he lives on a very meagre pension, because any savings he once had, he has had to go fighting his case in court, because, you know, they do try to shut people up. Take, for example, one Tara Andrea Davison, who operated as a money laundering agent from Manchester House at 32 Bangor Street, a little village on the banks of the Menai Straits between Carnarvon and Bangor. This is how it looked in May 2018. It is currently being renovated and stripped out after being sold by the Derbyshire Police as proceeds of crime. It is an address that was used to store guns, drugs, fake passports, you name it. This is 19 Hendruin Road, Bangor, one of 5 addresses that were previously recorded by the council as derelict Hendruin Road properties and owned by Elvin Cecil Lay, which was the address for 4 companies handled by Andrea Davison that she moved from Manchester House, 32 Bangor Street. Following her arrest, prosecution and in absence conviction, all in an N265 exhibit evidence at the Royal Courts of Justice. You know, Gordon Bowen is presenting absolute solid evidence here. Absolute solid evidence. Why is nobody picking up on it? You know, as I've said in my previous video, people being made destitute through austerity on behalf of the bankers, these criminal financiers, okay? They're being arrested and imprisoned for begging, okay? They're being arrested and imprisoned for begging. What about, where are the arrests for the hard, solid evidence that Gordon Bowen? And this isn't the first time that I have covered this, okay? This is not the first time I've been covering Gordon Bowen for the last 3-4 years since I first discovered what this was all about. And hats off to him. Richie Allen had her on the show. I mean, I've got serious doubts about, you know, some alternative news media presenters like Richie Allen and David Icke and stuff. You know, they share a bit of the truth with you, but ultimately they, as far as I'm aware, I feel that they work to lead people down false avenues, basically. So there you go. She's been, even though she's been convicted, she's been a guest on the Richie Allen show, you know, like as some kind of victim, and she's been allowed to publish a book on Amazon. Now, how does one manage to do that without strong and powerful connections, I wonder? Unless, of course, she is not actually in Argentina at all, given how she recently tweeted to Derby North MP Gareth Williams. If she is in Argentina, then why is she getting involved in issues with Gordon's MP when she is supposedly in hiding on the other side of the world? The list of people involved when you start investigating into this is incredible and never-ending, it would seem. And if anybody thinks that Gareth Williamson, MP for Derbyshire North, is a good guy, then you need to read this, Pandora's Box, the New World Order's Operation and Financial Structure. Lord William Anthony Hall, Director General of the BBC, seen here, above, is linked to the fraud via his links to a Masonic lodge called Painters Hall at 9 Little Trinity Lane, London, where Urang Limited is based. If you go into his Wikipedia bio, you will see it mentioned that he is a liveryman there. Seriously, I tell you, we are talking about the Billionaire Boys Club here, aren't we? It is also the correspondence address for Anglesey Mining PLC, as is shown, as is showing on their website. So you can get. I tell you, I'm going to leave you this. You check these links. This is also a property that is owned by the notoriously secretive Rothschild family, which has been behind the sale of arms in every war since the French Revolution. Companies are registered at Shell conduit address for the specific purpose of moving money around unseen through various different avenues to offshore tax havens and back in a perpetual trail of deceit and secrecy in the pursuit of facilitating war games all the way to the Rothschilds so that they can make billions and trillions out at whatever cost to human life. Without this money laundering, there would probably be no refugees from the war in Syria, Afghanistan, Libya or Iraq, and probably no genocide in the Yemen or Myanmar either. This is how deep and wide this gets, and it's no wonder why Gordon Bowen threw up when he found this out. He found himself in a rabbit hole of Alice in Wonderland proportions that he could not get himself out of because his conscience told him to expose the truth about what was and still is going on. This isn't just about justice for Val anymore. This is something else, something much more profound than we can ever imagine. It's about helping every man, woman and child in the country that is suffering because of the deliberate cutbacks to essential services, because a minority of very rich individuals with no scruples are running away with the money, from pension pots on the stock exchange to an offshore bank, money which does not go back into the community but is money that will be never seen again. If we look at what's happened to Carillion and what's going on at Capita, who administer much of the local government, civil service, teaching, pensions and the collection of TV licences income for the BBC, and with Interserve not too far behind, then you will realise that these companies have been deliberately made to fail in some respects because they have been asset stripped from the inside out by the company directors. One of the things that appealed to me most about Gordon's investigations was what he found out about Anglesey Mining plc. This company has not mined a thing in over 34 years, yet still floats on the stock exchange and gets government taxpayer funded grants to help its day-to-day activities, yet its directors are linked directly to money laundering by the now defunct 788 to 790 Finchley Road, which was moved to 2 Woodbury Grove, North Finchley, London, by David Allen Perlman. The managing director of Anglesey Mining, William Bill Derrick Hooley, goes on investor roadshows across the world in the hope that potential investors will see Anglesey Mining as somewhere safe to invest their money in so that they will eventually start mining. They will start to see a return on their investment. But this is all a scam, and investors are already starting to get itchy and to question whether they will ever see a return on their capital. Be careful of anything to do with Anglesey Mining plc though, otherwise you might have to go down a big hole, just like the shares are doing. The shares have always been boosted by agents working for them. People, Brent Russell Hargreaves, for instance, going by the account name Brentharg. The company Anglesey Mining plc, I believe, under normal FCA protocol, company and director regulations there, must, via their appointed company secretary or CFO, release an information or regulatory news service to investors to explain their explanations for any dramatic rise or drop that has ultimately affected their share price. So much confidence in progressing to production, yet not one director has bought shares since 2012. I mean, would you want to invest 53 million in this rusty pile of crap? Of course, Anglesey Mining plc has been operating with millions in losses for a number of years now, and it gets propped up by taxpayer-funded grants from Senior Inez Anglesey Council ever since Robert Ian Cuthbertson was the finance director of the firm and operated out of 14 Fiddled Road, Bangor. Okay, so, you know, what you've got there is this pile of rusting metal is getting funded by public money to the tune of what? How much? Millions, if not billions, over the years, doing nothing except operate in what looks like a shareholder scam. But meanwhile, nothing to save 25,000 jobs at British Steel. Please, people, please wake up. And again, why are 25,000 jobs at British Steel now under threat? Precisely for the Brexit that this lot need, these same financiers and bankers and Tories need, in order to avoid all this being uncovered by the EU. Never mind Gordon Bowen, it'll be uncovered by the EU. They will be facing criminal charges. You see, this is why, this is very important. This is why I'm taking the time to actually read this out to you. So, this address just happens to be a 2-minute walk around the corner to Druid House. 13 Menai View Terrace at 14 Menai View Terrace, Bangor. There we go, Druid House. Druid House. In the 1980s, Miss Tara Andrea Davison was recruited in Bangor by Gail Craven Walker and her husband Anthony Craven Walker, who with Gail Kincaid and others ran money laundering companies out of Druid House, 13 Menai View Terrace, Bangor, of which there are photos of Davison skipping around the garden at night. The Cravens recruited Davison with Elvin Cecil Lay, Jules Lay and Pete Sawyer to operate Club Odessa, aka Club Russia, a honey trap corruption blackmail club in Bangor using Russian and Thai prostitutes. Now, with all this Epstein stuff out, finally people, you know, look, it was never a conspiracy theory, was it? We know what Jimmy Savile was involved in, exactly the same stuff. We know what Cambridge Analytica feeds off, exactly the same stuff, honey trap. There were probably children involved in this as well. There are also recovered photos of Tara Andrea Davison from her website at Club Odessa, aka Club Russia, at 14 Menai View Terrace, Bangor, wearing a skimpy tight t-shirt with a logo on the front showing Infidel with what looks like an AK-47 cocked on her hip with silencer. She kept this weapon under her bed at the Bangor farm cottage she shared residence with an informer to David Gordonson, who Davison, dressed in a see-through nightie, threatened with this firearm at 2 a.m. one morning. The Club Odessa blackmail honey trap snapper photographer was Pete Sawyer. The lady in the top floor right-hand side of the 254 Amesbury Avenue, Streatham, London, said she was fed up of all the prostitutes knocking on her door looking for Pete Sawyer. In the 114 pages of the Gulf Keystone Petroleum plc admission doc, if you look at pages 101 to 105, you will see the directors of the interests. And, you know, I tell you, all the links are here. Check pages 104 to 105 and see right-hand side director column to E&I network of previous companies. Tara Andrea Davison was forging fake share certificates for use in the E&I Ponzi scams and others in fake oil, gas and mining exploration. Director-only companies, like John Stratton said in ABC Four Corners Bad Company, quote, "This is a hugely political driven event." I mean, ask David Cameron and his mate MP Nadeem Zahawi as director of Gulf Keystone Petroleum and General Energy, linked to SFO investigation into buying ISIS stolen oil and moving it via Turkey into Israel. I tell you, you know, Gordon Bowen, that little man, unassuming man, RAF engineer, hats off to him. 17 years work he's put into this for you, for us, the British people, and it's about time people started listening to him instead of listening to that yellow-haired buffoon, criminal, Boris Johnson, perjurer and liar. Give credit where it's due, people. Where Tara Andrea Davison, Jules Lay, Elvin Cecil Lay and Pete Sawyer ran Club Odessa, aka Club Russia, a dating site purporting to be a travel agency where they would bring women over from Russia to lure senior politicians and others into a honey trap. Andrea Davison also had a motorsport UK company registered at 14 Menai Terrace with her then partner David William Mills, who used to work at the Trorskinid nuclear power station and had his locker raided by police. I mean, come on. Pity Miss Davidson couldn't even spell Bangor right, though. She spelt it Bangor. Quite an oversight for someone who used to produce fake passports and share certificates. Meanwhile, back at Anglesey Mining, where nothing ever seems to happen. I mean, sorry, I've just got to go back to this here because we've just read about connections to ISIS here and selling oil and goods that they've received through ISIS, illegal goods, okay, and here we have a key player whose partner works in nuclear power. He actually works at a nuclear power station. I mean, you know, we're not just talking issues of national security here, we're talking about global security, and how many people in this world are suffering as a direct result of these criminals of power in Britain. Who is going to protect this planet except us, we the people? We cannot rely on these criminals anymore, people. So, meanwhile, back at Anglesey Mining, where nothing ever seems to happen, have a look at this report going back to 2002. The financial director for Anglesey Mining is one Dinesh Kumar Varma. If you check his records on Companies House, you'll see that he sometimes tries to hide his money laundering antics by using a variation on his name, Dinesh instead of Danesh as a forename, and Uama instead of Varma as a surname, for example, which is illegal. Gordon has sussed him out and has found out that Mr Varma has many fingers in a money laundering pie. He is even a director on the board of Grangesberg Iron Ore Company in Sweden, which Bill Hooley is chairman of, a company that hasn't mined a thing in years, which was bought by Anglesey Mining, another company that hasn't mined a thing in years. Now there's a thought, people of Wales. Where's your money been going into this Anglesey Mining company? Public funds. No money for your local libraries though, eh? How does a company that hasn't mined a thimbleful of dirt, as Gordon says it, gets away with buying out another company that hasn't produced anything from mining either? Well, whilst making operating losses, it gets supplemented by Anglesey Borough Council and by naive investors who think nothing about what the directors of the company are doing and where does the money go. I tell you where it goes, offshore. Anglesey Mining plc is a perfect example of how gullible the British public are in not questioning a thing about what happens on their doorstep. The people of the island of Anglesey just pay their taxes to the council every year without fail, without questioning why so many millions of pounds of taxpayer money has carried the loss-making company in all the years that it has been in business, or where the money has gone to. But Gordon knows, and he's happy to confront them and to see them in court about it. But they won't take him to court because they know that they could potentially lose the case and open up the floodgates to all the people linked to Anglesey Mining and their involvement in money laundering via Finchley Rd. But that is exactly what the EU tax financial regulations now threaten to do. Now do you understand why they want their Brexit? This is just a very brief insight into how the money laundering networks operate and how corrupt the higher echelons of society are in Britain. There are so many of them it would be impossible to go after them all in one go, so it has to be done in stages, through small steps and by focusing on one company or individual at a time. This will lead to the other investigations and convictions. This is a massive task, of course, just like the Panama and the Paradise Papers are, but somebody has to take it on. It is a true good versus evil story. Anglesey Mining has its gatekeepers, agents who are paid to block any truth from being shown to the public with bullying tactics, but bullies eventually get what they deserve. Sooner or later they get found out, and that is why Gordon Bowen is fighting so hard to expose this. There are a fair few politicians who are very scared about what Gordon Bowen knows, and very soon the whole world will get to know about it. Hidden secrets will be revealed. You see, what it all boils down to is mass asset stripping on a vast scale for the benefit of the richest 1% elite at the top. And to hell with those at the bottom if it affects, e.g. the homeless, the refugees who fled their countries because theirs has been bombed to smithereens, the dirty money for the bonds having been raised by pimps working as agents doing all the laundering of money for them. I will leave you with these eloquent words by Brendan Woodhouse. You show me a fighting aged male and I will show you a man who can work. Show me the man that you're frightened of and I will show you a gentle soul who is scared. You show me an economic migrant, an invader or a crook and I will show you a mirror. For we are all the sons and daughters of migrants. We, as people, have always moved and we have all benefited from their misery. In order for you to be rich, to buy cheap clothes and to talk on your phone, someone will slave for you. It is our ease of living that has made them poor. It is our exploitation that makes them run. Not just the West, but the rich all over. We are the creators of migration, the benefactors and the blind. We turn our eyes to their suffering, yet we expect them to take all that comes. We buy brands that exploit and expect everything for cheap, cheap, cheap. But when a boy or a man cannot see how they can survive, we expect them to drown silently in their poverty whilst we book our holidays in the sun. And we will use our passports to fly to almost any destination on this earth. We, the rich, can seek employment wherever we like, and we can just pop to Paris for a weekend away. But when the man who suffers for our opulence wants to do the same, we say no, don't come, you should stay. We, the creators of their misery, define ourselves as the victims of their pain. We cry and complain that somebody steals the job that we're too lazy to do. We take their oil, their minerals, their produce and their lives, and yet it is we who call them crooks. And it is we that call ourselves the victims of their pain. You say that they come for our welfare state, yet I've met thousands of people crossing this sea and every single one of them wanted to work. Can you say that about the people back home? I certainly can't. You talk of losing our culture, but when we turn our backs on the poor, then I think it's a culture that we can lose. You say that we should help our homeless first, yet when I see the man on the streets we walk by. We each live in a blanket of self-righteousness, myself included, stating that others should do something to change, be it for the homeless, the lonely or the displaced. We form our opinions in the warmth and the comfort of our homes. But unless you have walked 1 mile in their shoes, then don't tell them where they should go, for we are their reflection. We are all made the same. It is by chance that we were born with opportunity, as it is by chance that they were born in the dust. And it could be by chance that our choices are taken away. Their struggle is our struggle, for it was not them. If it was not them, it would be us. You think that leaving all that you have known is easy. You think that crossing that sea is a choice. Then you don't know how many are lost to this journey. You don't know the pain they take. And if you want to talk about choices, then you should acknowledge that it is only us who can choose. We have one life. Let's not waste it on hate. Only love. You show me a fighting aged male, and I will show you a man who can work. So, you know, as he said, couldn't say it better myself. And this is from Gareth Williams, Press Liaison Manager and Co-Director of Pandora's Box Investigations Limited. Hats off to you, Gareth Williams. Thank you very, very much. This is absolutely spot on, top on work. I am honoured to be reading it out and sharing it with the British people. And the British people, you are honoured by Gordon Bowen. Men like Gordon Bowen, they are the backbone of Britain. They are what has made Britain truly great in the years post-World War II. Men like Gordon Bowen. Give him the credit where he's due. Why isn't he Prime Minister of Britain? Why have we got this crazy Trumpian buffoon there? So, you know, thank you very, very much for taking time to listen, and I wish everybody well, and God bless. Please do share this, check the links, share the link, talk about it. We need action, and please get out there on the 19th of October in your local town, city, or if you can make it to London. It is time to cancel, to stop this Brexit in its tracks, okay? Because these criminals are going to face the music from their organ grinders. Let them be the monkeys.